We're going to look at solving this problem by a variety of methods. The first thing that I want to note is that taking the square root is not going to work. So this one is not possible. The reason why this is not a possible method is because there is the 10x term, which is not a perfect square. And this is going to be true for most of the quadratics that you're given, that you're going to have a middle term. If you have a bx term and it's not 0, then you cannot use the taking the square root method. So we know that for the other methods, we want our formula to equal 0. So I will start by adding 9 to both sides. So I have x squared plus 10x plus 9 equal to 0. I'm going to work straight across this time. So first off, I want to see if I can factor. So I'm looking for factors of 9 that add up to 10. 3 times 3 does not work, but 1 times 9 would work. And so to factor, I put my 2 sets of parentheses equals 0. I split the x squared term to be x and x, and I put my factors, so plus 1 plus 9. Each individual factor will produce an answer by being set equal to 0. And so I get an answer of x is -1 and x is 9. Excuse me, -9. If all I was asked to do is solve, I would be done. But we want to work on the different methods. So next I'm going to look at graphing. To graph, I'll go to my graphing calculator, and I will be typing in the formula that equals 0. I go to my y equals and type my formula. So x squared plus 10x plus 9. The last time that I did a graphing problem, I used the 0 feature. This time I'm going to show you a slightly different way. Because the other side of the equation equals 0, I'll put 0 as my y2. I will graph, and I see my parabola, and I see that the red line, where I have y2 equals 0, is directly on top of the axis. I find this to be slightly easier because now I can do intersection instead of 0. So second trace, option 5 for intersect, enter through the questions. I get my first answer of -1. I do need to repeat to get the other answer, so second trace, intersect. Here I need to be a little bit more strategic, so I enter for first curve, enter for second curve. When it comes time to guess, I need to move my cursor to the second answer. Otherwise, the calculator will tell me the same answer again. And so again, I get the -9, the second answer I was expecting. So this time for graphing, the strategy that I used is I made my y1 my formula, x squared plus 10x plus 9. I made my y2 0, and I found both intersections. My graph looked like this. My intersections were at -9 and -1. All right, taking a square root was not possible, so the last option is the quadratic formula. First, I note that the a value is 1, the b value is 10, and the c value is 9. The quadratic formula is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I substitute in all of the numbers, so the opposite of b would be -10 plus or minus b squared, so 10 squared is 100, minus 4 times 1 times 9 all over 2 times 1. I do the math. So I want to do the math just inside the square root. I do not want to take the square root until later in the process. We'll talk about why when we look at another example. But for this example, under the square root, I have 64. Now, I do need to split this into two problems. Last time I just did arrows, but I am going to write out my two problems. My one problem is negative 10 plus square root 64 all over 2. And my other problem is negative 10 minus square root 64 all over 2. This first one becomes negative 10 plus 8 all over 2. And that would simplify to be negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. My second one is negative 10 minus 8 all over 2, which is negative 18 over 2, or negative 9. Same two answers that I got by the other methods. And so we have a problem that has 3 potential ways to be solved.